So, hello and welcome to Somatic Approaches in Therapy Summit. My name is Raymond Rodriguez, and I'm a clinical social worker with interest in the area of immigration, diversity, LGBTQ, AI plus empowerment, spirituality, and working with marginalized communities. And I will be your host for this session today, and I am very excited to be in conversation with Dr. Bessel Kolk and Licia Sky. Dr. Kolk is a clinical psychiatrist whose work integrates mind, brain, body, and social connections to understand and treat trauma. Dr. Kolk is also an internationally recognized leader in the field of psychological trauma, and he is the author of more than 150 peer-reviewed scientific articles and several books, including Psychological Trauma, the first integrative text on the subject, Traumatic Stress, the effects of overwhelming experiences on mind, body, and society, and The Body Keeps the Score, Mind, Brain, and Body in the Healing of Trauma. And we're also joined by Dr. Kolk's wife, Licia Sky, and she is the co-founder and global ambassador of the Trauma Research Foundation. She is a somatic educator, artist, songwriter, singer, and body worker who works with traumatized individuals and trains mental health professionals to use mindful meditation in movement, theater exercises, writing, and voice as tools for attunement, healing, and connection. Licia is also a regular instructor in trauma healing workshops across the country, and for the past decade, she has been teaching expanded awareness in workshops to clinicians and lay people around the world. And Licia and Dr. Kolk have been working together for over 13 years, and Licia will only be able to be with us for the first part of this interview. So, Bessel and Licia, welcome. It's truly a delight to be here today with you both.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Yeah, so then to get us started, I just want to start by asking you about the importance of the therapeutic relationship in the healing process, and in particular, talking about synchrony, because I know that this has a very important role in healing relationships.
Well, the most important issue is to really for people to feel safe with themselves, and the therapist sometimes can be the conduit to helping people feel safe inside, because the imprint of trauma makes you feel agitated, out of sorts, confused, etc., etc. So the therapist, the relationship, can serve as an anchor that can help you to focus and let light shine and find language and find access to yourself via that other person paying attention to you.
And synchrony has to do with the rhythms in our own bodies, being able to hear the rhythm of our breath, sense the rhythm of our heartbeat, sense the rhythm of the give and take of the balance of our body as we shift positions, as we feel ourselves in gravity. And there's a way that we can see more and understand more of the people around us when we're able to sense our own body's rhythms and sensations and come into alignment rhythmically. It's not a conscious thing, it's a physical sensation thing where things align instead of being out of sync with each other, that makes connection much easier, much more possible.
Right. So then to that, Licia and Bessel, when you were talking, Bessel, about anchor, right, like an anchor, the relationship, and that self-sense, like what does it actually feel like or look like in therapy when a therapist client is in synchrony? And this is particularly could be helpful for people that don't have information or are new to this concept.
Well, we learn who we are from how people respond to us. And so traumatized individuals come to therapy after having been abused and neglected, and that makes them feel unsafe in their own bodies and distrustful of other people. And so finding somebody who's really in tune with you and who you feel gets you and who you feel safe with enough to explore what is going on inside of you and help you to not be defensive about yourself is terribly important for us.
Since you're speaking in terms of synchrony, I'll say that the most powerful things happen in a session when you're able to slow down enough to stay present with the things that can make your system feel like speeding up. When someone is afraid to feel something, their muscles get tighter, their heart might race a little bit more, their breathing might become shallow and quicker. And there's this thing that happens when people are together where the mirror neurons are responding to each other. And as the person holding space in the session for a patient or a client, it's very important to be able to be centered and still enough in yourself that there's no noise there. And your groundedness and silence can open a space for somebody else to slow down and to stay present. So being able to notice the rhythm of your breath, the rhythm of the words that you're speaking, the rhythm of the words that the person you're working with are speaking, having a sense of their breathing. That's the first thing. But then being able to stay slow when the other person is getting faster, help them to slow down so that they can stay present with what they're feeling without running away from it is important, very, very important. And to have the patience to not be afraid of those slowing down moments.
And for a therapist, I think it's very important to make videotapes of your own process. We don't really know much about ourselves. We're very prejudiced about ourselves. We have ideas about ourselves, but an act of great courage for a therapist is to really look at videotapes and see when they got out of sync, when they interrupted people, when they didn't make space for people, when they got agitated, when they missed a clue. I think for it to become a really good therapist, you need to watch the very embarrassing things, see yourself.
So it's really about how the therapist uses self in the session and creating an attuned resonance, right? Am I?
Right. That's
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, not only attuned, you really need to be an anchor in the room.
Yeah.
You need to be a physiological anchor of an anchor of. I show videotapes of various people doing therapy, and I always say, look, the person didn't say anything particularly brilliant. And that's not what therapy is about. It's about being present so a person feels safe enough to go inside without judged or without feeling put down or corrected.
Right. And so then...
Sorry, the therapy... But I see the evolving in therapy is more and more people who try to fix other people.
Oh.
Say, why don't you go fix yourself before you start fixing other people?
Before you. And so then, Licia and Bessel, can you were already speaking a little bit to this, but can you add some more about how the therapist can begin to create these conditions of synchrony and relational safety? Because as we know, traumatized people often don't feel safe, right? That is so much part of their experience. So what can therapists do?
So many therapists have trauma histories themselves. I think it's probably main motivation while people become therapists. So you start with yourself. You do your work, and you really do get to know what your body feels like, and you experience from the inside out to see what it's like, what things bring up for you, first of all.
I would say that it's not really possible to do this well unless you are able to pay attention to your own body for yourself. With the traumatized people, it's very, very difficult to stay present with what comes up when you pay attention to the feelings in your body. Yeah. And if you're reading off a script, that's not the same thing as being authentically present in the moment. And at least for me, I find that the only way for me to really do it well is to have that be part of my practice. I practice with my own body, practice listening with my own body. And every time I'm sharing and trying to explain the experience, I'm speaking from my own experience in my own body. And a lot of that is encountering the unknown. Paying attention to your body slowly, listening to your breathing, subtle things, it can become a very, very deep, dare I say, intimate experience of knowing yourself differently. And to bring someone else into there, you have to be comfortable doing that for yourself.
So one of the many things I like about EMDR and what Francis Shapiro taught us is there's basically two important sentences. One is notice it. And that's one is, and what happens next. And so it is not the stories that people tell, but the becoming aware of what impact the stories have on your sense of yourself. So when you say, I saw my little sister drown in a swimming pool when she was 7 years old, the next question is not what happened. The next question is, so what happens inside of you as you recall watching your little sister drown? And how is it that affecting you right now? The very important part about therapy is about trauma is that the past lives on inside of you, and telling stories doesn't make the past go away. But becoming aware of it, how it is become part of your sensory system, and having somebody be able to join you there is a critically important thing. But it's not the story so much, although being able to say what is also important, but it's really the degree to which you can tolerate feeling the feelings happening in the past. And that's really our job as therapists, is to make it safe for people to feel the feelings.
Wow. I am reminded I am a sensory motor practitioner, and one of the things that we say is that we're more curious about the experience of the storyteller than the story.
Yeah, I was just thinking about Pat Ogden as Licia was talking actually, and how Pat was really one of my important colleagues and teachers also of that very great somatic stillness that can resonate and amplify what people are feeling by her and hopefully all of us really obtaining that it's safe to feel those sensations and those feelings.
Ah, beautiful. So I'm wondering, I mean, to kind of bring this home a little bit, if it would be helpful, if you would be willing to lead us into some experiential around this idea of synchrony and embodying that for therapists.
Yeah. Would it be okay if I sit forward a little bit for that? No, well, we're on the camera together, so I'm just going to scoot this over a little bit and just, all right. So I'll take maybe 10 minutes or so. We won't do a long session. You know, it depends on who I'm working with, but quite often people who have a lot of trauma and who think that talking is the thing that they've always done, it looks like not very much is happening. And they're wondering, well, why am I doing this? But as they do it, they begin to feel the sensations come up in their body, and that can be very uncomfortable. So some people can only tolerate paying attention to their breathing for a minute or two, and things, it's just very challenging to even stay there. So if we do 10 minutes, that might feel like forever for some people. These are practices. I always use the language of invitation. So the invitation is to hear what you're being offered to try. And the choice is to try it or not try it. The opportunity is to notice what comes up for you when you hear the invitation. Does it feel, what happens in your body when you just hear an invitation to listen to something? And is it a yes? Is it a no? For many people, even having that first choice is a thing. The next thing is that I'm inviting you to notice, sense, or imagine what you're experiencing. And I offer the word imagine because sometimes people say, I don't feel anything at all. And then the question isn't, oh, you're doing it wrong, but the question is, what's it like to not feel anything at all? Always holding curiosity. Or is it frustrating, or I don't like this, or it's boring, or all kinds of things can come up. And then what's it like to just stay there anyway? What's it like to just try paying attention a little bit? And the word imagine is there because we have many experiences of sensations that we don't know how to explain, that our culture or society does not allow us to acknowledge and say, this is a real thing that's happening to me. Sometimes, so when that happens, or if it's a feeling that's so big that's coming up that they don't want to acknowledge it, they'll push it down and say, this isn't real, it's not happening. So if you can, even if it's not real, you can still be experiencing something. And so what do you imagine you're experiencing? So with that, I'll also say that everything that I offer is my practice. And a practice means there's no perfect, exact, only one way to do it. And that every time I come to my practice of paying attention to my body, it's different. My body is different in a different place, in a different time. So I'll experience something new, maybe subtle, but new. So the first invitation is to just notice how you're sitting. I invite you to feel into the position of your body in space. And I like to focus in on my sense of gravity and contact with the surfaces that support my body in gravity. As I do that, I can feel my feet making contact with the floor. And I can feel my hips and the base of my spine and my bum making contact with the chair that I'm sitting on. And I can feel my spine rising in space. The base of my spine from my hips. Follow and sense the curve of the back of my spine from my coccyx, my tailbone, to my sacrum, to my lower back, my lumbar. And as I speak these words of what I'm experiencing, I'm curious about what you're experiencing. I'm curious about what you're able to notice of your body in space, of your body relating to gravity with balance. Where are your feet? What direction are your toes pointed in? What direction are your knees pointed in? What direction is your hip pointed in? I can feel my toes pointing one way, my knees in a slightly different direction, and my hips in a slightly different direction to that even. And then I can feel the front line of my body, of my belly, rising in front of my spine, with my belly button going towards my knees and my shoulders going in the direction of my hips a little bit to my right. I wonder, where can you feel the twists and turns of your body in space? If I come back to my spine again, I can feel where the lowest ribs connect with my spine and my back. I can shift a little bit side to side and feel my ribs moving. I wonder if you can feel your ribs moving. And as I play with my ribs moving, I can feel my shoulders moving in response and my hips moving in response. I'll bring my awareness to the front side of my ribs, to my solar plexus, and my chest, and my shoulders. And I invite you to do the same. And follow your awareness to the back side of your body again, to your wing bones, to your scapula. And again, you might squeeze your shoulders behind you just a little bit, just to have that sense of your scapula, your wing bones moving at the back side of your body. And I invite you to feel your shoulders floating at the top of your ribs. From here, I invite you to allow your awareness to come to the movement of your breath. Maybe the rise and fall of your chest as you inhale and exhale. Maybe the expansion and contraction of your belly as you inhale and exhale. The fullness and the volume of your body. What are you able to notice, sense, or imagine of the three-dimensional volume of your body in space? And as you notice your breathing, I invite your awareness to rise up your spine again and come from the base of your neck to the base of your skull. To just listen in and see if you can notice, sense, or imagine the vertebra between the base of your neck and the base of your skull. And if you can listen in, visualize or notice, sense, or imagine the volume of your neck around your spine and the sensation of your head floating on the axis, the top of your spine. You might give your head a tiny tip in one direction or the other, do little circles. I wonder if you can sense into the feeling of your jaw on either side of your face as you tip your head from one side to the other. Can you notice, sense, or imagine the volume of your skull? And notice, sense, or imagine the features of your face at the front of your head. Can you sense into your forehead and your eyebrows and your eyes? Can you sense into the shape of your nose and your cheek, your mouth, your jawline? Can you feel into the expression on your face? Feel where the tension is, where the relaxation is. Is there an indication of how you are feeling expressed in your face? And I'll invite you to bring your awareness back again to your breathing. Perhaps to the sensation of air moving in and out through your nose, through your sinuses, air traveling in the back of your throat. And maybe from the inside of your body, can you sense the expansion of your chest as you inhale and contraction of your chest as you exhale? What does your breath feel like from the inside of your body? And for just one more moment, I'll invite you to place a hand on your belly and a hand on your chest. And I invite you to notice the sensations that you feel in your hands. What do your hands feel? What is the sensation of contact? Do you feel it only on the surface of your skin that makes contact with your body? What are the muscles that are engaged in holding you if you place your hands on your body in this way? What are the sensations in your arms, in your wrists? Do you feel the texture of your clothing? Do you feel the firmness or softness of your belly and chest? Can you sense into the movement of your breath? Can your hands feel that movement? And what does your body feel? What does your belly feel with your hand making contact with your belly? How far into your body are you able to register the sensation of your hand on your belly? Is it only on the surface of your skin? Can you feel something a half an inch or 2 inches in? Can you sense all the way into your body to the inside of your spine? And the hand on your chest, can you feel it rise and fall with your inhale and exhale? Can you feel the texture of your clothing? How far into your body do you feel the contact of your hand on your chest, on your heart? I invite you to listen into the sensations of holding a person, because your hands and arms are engaged in holding a person now. And I invite you to hold an intention of respect and kindness toward this person you are holding. And I invite you to also notice the sensations of being held. That there is someone holding you who's been invited to hold an intention of respect and kindness toward you. And I invite you to play with noticing, sensing, or imagine how much respect and kindness you are able to receive and give. And with the next breath in and out, invite you to very slowly disengage your hands from your body. Just allow them to float like a pillow of air between your hands and your body. And notice whatever sensations remain in your hands and remain in your body. And that might be enough for now. So that was a very, very brief session. It's something I can play with for hours.
Oh, that was truly beautiful, Licia. I really appreciate it. Like, I feel so much more embodied now after that. I also wanted to comment on the sort of the exquisite amount of detail about the body that you added in that short amount of time, like really going very exquisitely through all different parts of the body.
Yeah.
And also noticing for myself your use of self, right? Your prosody, your tempo, the slowness, the invitational language, that I think those speak also about the synchrony that we were having a conversation a moment ago.
Yeah, yeah. And so the thing is, when you can have a heightened awareness of this, these are the things that are in the background all the time. Yeah. That inform how we experience or how we interpret what we're experiencing, that say, oh, this is safe or this is not safe, this is comfortable, this is not comfortable. To be aware of your body enough to notice, oh, my body is responding in this way and my mind is thinking this or interpreting how I'm experiencing, can also be helpful for letting you know what somebody else is feeling. It's a way of co-listening. That you listen better for another person when you understand how your body is listening, and how you help another person to listen to their body, helps them to listen not only to themselves better, but to be in sync better with other people. You can miss social cues. You can be out of sync. You can fall into step. You can realign. You can rejoin. And so this awareness is a way back into flowing with other people.
Really beautiful, Licia. Thank you so much. And
Thank you.
To follow up on this exercise that you just led us in, I wonder if you both can speak a little bit about, those clients and, particularly traumatized clients, right, who have a hard time being in their body, right, who may be even phobic of just even noticing what's happening inside. If you can speak a little bit to that.
Yeah, that may be the problem. That it's not, trauma has become popular, so it's that story about the past. But the story about the past is just an explanation of why you feel what you feel. So it's not the trauma; it's how whatever the imprint of the past is in your body right now that makes you tense, uptight, angry, aggressive, agitated, sort of stuff. So it lives on right now inside of you. And the question is to become aware of that and to also see what you can do to actually welcome yourself in. One of the exercises that I love Licia does is, what's it like for that hand to hold this body? What's like for this body to be held by that hand? To really become aware, but it's like to experience yourself as a sentient human being and have somebody there to give you the courage to go there. I think the main thing that we as therapists do actually is to encourage people, to give them heart, and to make it safe to be aware of certain things. So the nature of trauma, of course, is that it is too overwhelming to feel anything, so you shut yourself down, and then you become afraid of your own feelings, sensations, and emotions, and that is the issue. The issue is not what happened in the past. The issue is that you continue to arrange yourself as if it's happening. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think this ends my time with you for today. And it's been an honor to be with you, and I hope that I can come back and do more with you another time.
Beautiful. Thank you, Licia.
Thank you so much. Okay. See you later.
Thank you, Licia.
So Bessel is you and I now.
Yes. Well, won't be quite as good, but we'll do our best. Huh? Yeah.
So to continue on, some other questions that I had here that I wanted to ask you was if you can speak kind of more broadly about why is it so important to have this embodied approach when working with trauma. And like you alluded to it, right, how trauma lives in the body, not in what happened, but how it is perpetuated in the here now. So I'm also wondering if you can add a little bit about the neuroscience here behind all of that, and why having this embodied approach is so integral.
Yeah, I think that's what therapy is about: is to get to know. We tend to externalize things. I say, "Oh, that happened to me, and those people were awful to me." But then, when you start doing this work, you see that you're doing the same thing to yourself as has been done to you in the past, and you're just as condemning and frightened of whatever goes on with you as the people who originally did this to you, and that your judgment about yourself can be unspeakably cruel. We see this all the time. So how do you feel about a little girl who's being molested? And people say, I hate her. She was so weak. She couldn't stand up for herself. She just loved her daddy and didn't stop anything. And then you see this incredible lack of acceptance of oneself. And then what was important for me to learn also is that us reassuring people about that, no, it wasn't your fault, doesn't really do the trick. You need to come to that conclusion yourself. Huh? And so that's very much what we try to do in various therapies, including sensory motor and psychedelic therapies, is to help people to become aware of how it's continued to live inside of you and how you are so scared of parts of you that were involved in the trauma, that you're scared of that part of you that surrendered. You're scared of that part of you that became so angry. You're scared of the part of you that was defiant or wasn't defiant. And so parts work, of course, is a very important part of trauma healing, and it's one of the more important advances we have made in trauma understanding was to really deal with parts and with managers and firefighters and a core sense of self. And I think that's a very important piece of doing the therapy, is to really get to feel the different parts of you and what their function is. I think a very important part of I don't quite agree with Dick Schwartz on that there are no bad parts. Certainly, I think that our government is run by bad parts right now. But basically, it's important to understand how these parts developed. What has the part done for you? Huh? And if I can be a bully, then nobody will bully me and won't put me down. It doesn't work because you continue to feel humiliated by whatever comes in until you start loving this creature inside of you. But you need to really understand the landscape of your internal world. Yeah.
Ah, beautiful. So, Bessel, can you speak a little bit of the neurobiology of this? Again, this embodied approach to trauma treatment. Yeah.
So what we have come to understand is that, trauma really affects many different areas of the brain at different ways at different ages. Our understanding, the way we talk about it is way too crude right now. And that the research of people like Marty Teicher and Ruslanius has shown that at different ages, different things get affected. And so, but one of the more interesting findings here is Ruslanius is finding that we have this very primitive part of our brain, even below the amygdala, called the periaqueductal gray, that is sort of there as a monitor of danger and safety. I call it the cockroach part of your brain. We have it in common with every other animal in the world. And when you feel safe, that part of your brain is quiet. But when you're traumatized, that part of your brain is always firing. You always feel something going to happen I'm not safe. I'm not safe. And so how to learning how to take in feeling safe in your body becomes terribly important. I think that doing somatic work also, as you know from your experience in sensory motor psychotherapy,
Yeah.
very challenging to actually allow yourself to feel that body. And because touch has been oftentimes so contaminated, uh, you don't know what it's like to feel the comfort of touch. And that other people just become dangerous and frightening. So learning how to feel safe in your body uh, is terribly important. For many people, of course, having a cat or a dog or a
Yeah.
horse is incredibly helpful. And that's not like a substitute. No, a dog can be enormously helpful to give you. That's a creature that's devoted to you. That brings me back to tail when I come home, and that I know that's what it feels like to be welcomed.
Yeah.
And if you have chronic trauma and neglect, you internally never feel welcomed. You're trying to survive things, but you don't go like, "Wow, it's going to be so good to be with my friends." It's always defensive. What's going to happen? Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, really, really beautiful. I love the whole idea of pets for that reason.
Oh yeah, and people have always had them around the world, every part of the world. Those pets that make you feel safe. But the issue of touch is terribly important, and it's a very complex issue in our field, of course, because as a verbal therapist, you really don't touch. But at the same time, touch is an essential part of comfort. Starts in the womb, you're enveloped by amniotic fluid in your mom's belly, and then coming into the world and being expelled from that is a very, very big thing. And then what happens is hopefully you get held, you get walked, and so you continue to have that sensory connection with something that makes you safe. And trauma is about breaking that sensory connection.
Sensory, yeah, yeah. So then, some other curiosity that I have here, Bessel, is that given your decades of research and practice, I wonder if you can kind of almost like distill, right? Like, what are the most essential components of effective trauma treatment? Uh, and I also mean, especially in terms of long-term integration and healing, and I would say transformation.
Yeah.
Like, what would you say are those essential elements?
I think one very important thing is indeed that you have these behaviors that are weird and upsetting, and don't do that. Like cutting yourself and starving yourself and overeating, and you need to get to know this part and say, so how old is this part that wants to starve yourself? I hear all this stuff about people trying to control people's suicidality. I think that's more trying to please the lawyers than really helping people. I think it's perfectly all right to be suicidal. I always say to people, like, it's a great option to have that you can check out and stop your own suffering. Good for you. So, and what else might be able to help you to make it safe for you to be alive right now, aside, short of killing yourself? Does playing tennis help? Do you enjoy swimming? Does making music with other people help? How are your tango dance lessons going? To really open up yourself for what this creature, you, needs to feel pleasure and safe. And I think, one of the very words that is most neglected in our field is the F word and the P word, pleasure and fun. Because a very important part of being traumatized is you can't feel pleasure and you can't feel fun because your body doesn't feel safe. And so then it really becomes, how can we explore your sense of pleasure? And that oftentimes goes via making music together, singing together, walking with people. And for a lot of us, just going for a walk with a friend. What is being said is secondary. This is sort of the lyrics to the music of the walking. But But at the core of us as primates, we're interpersonal creatures, and most of our brain is geared towards being together. Our brain was basically you and I could do a podcast together. That's sort of the purpose of our brain. And when you and I are in sync with each other, there's a sense of, wow, this was really good. And if every time you ask me a question, I give you an answer that has nothing to do with what you asked me about, you go, that really was a shitty interview. we are out of sync with each other. So the whole issue of synchronicity is critical. And that's what I'm trying to help school teachers with and young parents. That how can you really make it safe for this kid to be relaxed enough to learn? Be relaxed enough to not have to be hypervigilance. And that comes from synchrony. And go to any restaurant, any place, and see what the relationships are like between parents and kids. And you see it from how they move together, how their voices melt together. In any restaurant, you can hear which couple gets along with each other because of the rhythm of their voices, the synchrony of their faces, stuff like that. Yeah.
Right. So it's almost like creating that in the therapeutic space.
Among other places, but that's where it should start, in the therapeutic space, but also to explore in the therapeutic space of, so what's that like, and how can we open this up for you, but I find missing in much therapy is that in order to evolve, you need to have new experiences, and the experience of being attuned to by somebody can be incredibly powerful, of course, and that's really why good therapy works. But it also means that you need to go and try out new things. Book that we're almost finished with, we have a big chapter on imagination, and you can only imagine what you have experienced before. If you don't know what it feels like to feel safe, you cannot imagine feeling safe. So you need to have experience of doing so. And so, does your tango dancing lesson do it for you? Does your playing tennis do it for you? Does your horseback riding do it for you? And to really explore, what does my body need in order to feel safe?
Right. Yeah, and I would imagine, Bessel, that it's also almost like bite-sizing that, right? Because somebody, it may be too evocative to go to a class, let's say, but there may be smaller experiences. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And that's the exercise Licia did with us. Hopefully, was not very hard for you, and wasn't hard for me, because we know that sort of stuff. But for some people, just putting the hand on their chest can be a really scary and difficult experience. And we've all had that experience as therapists. Like, why don't you just take a deep breath? No, I'm not going to take a deep breath. That's bullshit. Like, no, I'm not going to take a deep breath. And you get agitated with the notion that you just need to actually feel your chest opening up. And so, and that's really where we come in again. The videotapes are very helpful here to see, like, when people become defensive, to say, okay, let's slow it down. Not like let's not do it anymore, but you finger on your chest, or what we do, we use tuning forks. If a hand is too much, you can put a tuning fork on somebody's chest or somebody's arm. But what's your relationship to this input from the outside?
Wonderful. So, like, I'm looking at time, so I have a couple of other questions that I wanted to ask you, Bessel. And one is, right, because you've been on the forefront of the trauma field, right, for decades now. And I'm wondering what your take is on what is still misunderstood about trauma and trauma treatment, both in the therapy world, but also more broadly in our society.
Well, I think the biggest misunderstanding is that now that trauma has become a meme, that people, let's talk about your trauma. And indeed, being able to be honest about what happens to you is important. But what's also real is that it is too overwhelming, and oftentimes you cannot even go there. This is a whole issue of repressed memories that continues to be popular, and people love to attack me on this. Oh, we never forget stuff. Oh, really? Like when you do psychedelic therapy, for example, all kind of stuff comes up that you were unaware of. When you do EMDR, all kind of stuff comes up. When you do sensory motor psychotherapy, once your body feels safer, it also feels safer to really realize, oh my God, that happened to me. And once you go there, you can develop compassion for yourself. And one of our big findings in our MDMA and psychedelics work was the improvement in self-compassion. And that if you can't go outside, you cannot feel compassion for yourself. So you live with that deep feeling of not being taken care of by yourself and not being acceptable by yourself. And so opening that up, and the more detail you have, you go, oh, I was only 3 years old. Oh my God, I was just a little kid. And then beat me. Oh my God, I feel so sorry for the little kid. And then the next thing we often get to see, astonishing, and I feel so bad for my alcoholic father who beat me up because he never got to enjoy what a beautiful daughter he had.
Yeah.
So once you get the self-compassion, you can also get compassion for other people.
Oh, wonderful. So, Bessel, what suggestions would you offer to therapists who are interested in integrating more of an embodied approach in their work with clients, right? Like how do they go about it? Maybe for listeners or for people who are viewing this, who this is all very new to them.
Yeah, sadly, it is new.
Yeah.
It's actually amazing that it still is new, although my sense is that my book has had quite an impact, actually. That the first time I introduced the body in the trauma field was in Melbourne in the year 2000, and I left that meeting and everybody said, oh my God, he has gone off the deep end. It's just crazy. And I remember Pat Ogden being the only person at that conference who still talked to me afterwards. And now everybody says the body keeps score. Everybody says, and so at least it's opening up. But the prevailing thing these days is CBT. You can figure it out by thinking and correcting yourself. And that's a mistake. Huh? I love to tell people, oh, I do CBT on my wife all the time. I point out the error of her ways and how she shouldn't feel that way and how she's not seeing it quite right. And it's so good for our marriage for me to do CBT on it.
Oh, no, I do attest, Bessel, that you've made a significant contribution, not just through your writing, but just by who you are and the kinds of things that you have challenged. And so, Bessel, I also wanted to ask you about, kind of where, because as you pointed out right now, right, like this is still new, right? Even though some of us, really fully embrace this. So,
yes and no, of course. I was in Rome last year and sitting in front of the Pantheon with a professor in Rome. He says, Dr. van der Kolk, I would like to have a conference here in Rome on somatic therapies. What is the latest in somatic therapy? And I said to him, look around. Do you think there's anything you and I can say here that has never been said before? In some ways, we always keep reinventing the wheel and find new words for all concepts. But this has been around forever because human beings are the people who have always been. And then our culture moves us in a particular direction. And so when I was growing up in the field, like recently somebody posted something on my Wikipedia page like, oh, he has all these crazy notions. He believes in mirror neural systems, and he believes in EMDR, which has been thoroughly disproven to be helpful. Really, and 40 years ago, he doesn't believe in the Oedipal complex. Can you believe that? So the culture changes, but we don't change. And so it's really a question of what at any particular moment the culture accepts as the truth. And that keeps evolving. And it's this thing in our field right now of this the treatment of choice, or is this a gold standard? By some people in 2025, and 5 years from now, we laugh like, boy, were we wrong? It's very important that 30 years ago, fundamentally, officially, we didn't know anything about the body. Now we know a little bit. Okay. Hopefully 10 years from now, 20 years from now, we'll be compassionately smiling at ourselves like, oh my God, how ignorant we were. So anybody who tells you I found the answer or the truth is almost certainly lying.
Right.
We're evolving people, and the culture keeps evolving. And what's striking to me also is that for every good new thing that we learn, we lose another one. Yeah? So take hypnosis. For at least a century, and I know that literature well, hypnosis was the treatment of choice for trauma. Quite effective. Who does hypnosis anymore? So that's gone by the wayside. But now we know sensory motor psychotherapy. And so things keep evolving, and that's okay. And we need to evolve with it. And so a very important part of being a clinician is to keep learning. I'm 81 years old. 10 years ago, I knew nothing about psychedelic therapies. I'm now one of the world's experts in psychedelic therapy. But I also say I'm a beginner student, even though I've studied for 10 years. All these things are terribly complex, and they're always evolving.
Yeah. There's something very humbling about those words.
One of the things that I'd like to say is that, as a therapist, you have to accept that a good amount of the time, you don't know what the hell's going on. You try to make sense out of it, but you need to have an enormous capacity to tolerate ambiguity and to tolerate uncertainty. Yeah. And it's very important to not prematurely sure about things.
Yeah. I tell my supervisees that if they're not having one of those moments regularly in their practice, then they need to reevaluate what they're doing.
Things keep changing all the time. Yeah.
Yes, keep changing. And so along those lines, Bessel, what do you see as kind of where the field is going, or what are you excited about more recently that you want to speak about in terms of the evolution of our field? Yeah.
But I really see it happening on a very small scale, that people are really beginning to incorporate the body into the work. That I've always wanted to do a study on tango dancing versus CBT for the treatment of trauma. I'm a scientist, so I'm open for the data. But I think people are beginning to really see more and more that doing synchronous things with other people, like music, theater, dancing, really can make a tremendous difference in terms of who you are in relationship to people around you. And I see the world is really somewhat opening itself up to somatic approaches to therapy. Mm-hmm. Moving is a very important part. A big point. I read a lot of dead white guys like Pavlov and Darwin and people like that. So what I learned from Darwin is that the function of emotions is to move. Oh. And emotions mean moving. Well, moving is completely absent from therapy. Yeah. But a living human being moves. Mm-hmm. So incorporating and getting to understand what sort of movements are necessary for this person to open up their shell and to become flexibly involved in the environment is terribly important. And we have lots to learn. And the big thing is we're always learning.
Yeah. Ah, beautiful. So, Bessel, I think that is the time we have. It's really been a pleasure to be here with you and earlier with Licia. I can't thank you enough. I always learn something new when I speak. So.
Great. Okay.